In 1890, a valiant effort was made to repent for decades of slavery, discrimination, and fear-mongering. Congress passed the 15th Amendment, giving all minorities who were American citizens the right to vote. But the promise was short-lived.
I'm going to sing a little song. My name's Jim Crow.
Now, Jim Crow was a white man dressed as a black man who didn't just make fun of African Americans, he denigrated them. As the crowds roared in public, in private, the name Jim Crow became linked to a rigid set of laws meant to specifically create a dual society, one minority and one white. And when it came to voting, poll taxes and literacy tests were set up to bar blacks and Hispanics from voting in southern states. That was then. This is now.
The Department of Justice believes that Florida is violating voters' rights. In a letter detailing...
In Florida, the Republican governor claims up to 200,000 people are ineligible to vote and need to be purged from the voting ranks.
We know that individuals are voting in our state illegally.
Critics say this is discriminatory and have one big political move to eliminate potential Democratic voters.
Oh, absolutely not. This is nonpartisan.
It's just a sham. It's a total fraud what they're trying to pull. The Republicans know that, and yet at least the ones that are behind these bills on purpose have created additional hurdles without any evidence of voter fraud whatsoever, because they know that that will lead to less Latinos registering to vote.
Scott is one of a new crop of GOP governors and state legislators across America determined to create barriers to voting. They are pushing through measures that could prevent millions of students, minorities, immigrants, ex-convicts, and even the elderly from casting ballots.
1,000 Negroes and 400 white ministers and civil rights workers reached the end of the bridge.
In the 1960s, the civil rights movement emboldened not just African Americans, but also American Latino community to stand up and demand not only what was right, but what was theirs. In Arizona, 90-year-old Eduardo remembers that while Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was marching in the South, he watched with great interest. And when Ed showed up to vote and sheriff deputies tried to stand over his shoulder to see who he voted for, they got a rude awakening.
And I went over and I told him, "What the hell are you guys doing here?" I said, "Get the hell out of here." I said, "You're supposed to be 100 feet away from the polls." I said, "What the hell are you trying to do, intimidate us?"
Voter intimidation. It is part of American history. There were battles fought and lessons learned.
It's important that this generation is aware that it happened before, it's happening again in some places, and that they need to be aware.
And if you think the old-timers have forgotten how hard it was to exercise their right to vote, just try taking it away. What would you do if somebody came up to you and said, "Rebecca, you're not going to be able to vote anymore"?
Well, I would just tell them to go to hell.